Welcome to On the Brink with Andi Simon. For all of you who come to listen or to watch us, I'm so excited to share with you today a new series that we're creating within On the Brink. I have Gloria Bohan with me, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about how Gloria fits into this series. The series is called Wisdom of Women Entrepreneurs with Purpose. Hear their voices. This series of podcasts that I'm doing with my partner, Andi Frazier. Remember, Andi and I wrote Women Mean Business, the recent book that came out a year ago. And we are absolutely thrilled to find so many women now who are building businesses with purpose. Yes, they're interested in success, but in significance. And they talk about it in a slightly different way than you might expect. My job is to help you get off the brink. So wherever you are and whatever you're doing, pause for a moment and listen in to a very successful woman who has realized that her joy and her own purpose really for the whole time she's been in business has gone beyond simply making money, which is important, but also having meaning, which is equally important. And they're not an either or, they're really important. You're going to enjoy listening to all of them. Remember, the stories they tell you will help change your own story. And Andi and I say this all the time. The more stories you listen to, your brain literally changes. And it begins to frame what you are doing in a new way. So, Gloria, thank you for joining me today.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Let me tell you, I'm going to give you a very short little bio on Gloria because she has built Omega World Travel into an extraordinary business over 50 years in the travel industry. But the most interesting start is that she started as a school teacher with no background in business. Think about yourselves, my listeners, no background in the travel industry. And she built an international travel management company, Omega World Travel, that today handles business, leisure, and all types of travel and books $1 billion in annual sales. I'm not going to say all of you school teachers think about what's possible, but think about what is possible. And I love the little story she says, it was 1972. I didn't have a grand vision. I loved cruising as I thought I would probably be love selling cruises. And I was trying to survive and pay my one employee. So she started figuring out what she needed to do and just kept doing those things. And from that, I started to see opportunities evolve. Gloria, your story is, you're smiling about your own story. Share with our listeners or our viewers, who is Gloria? Let's share this wonderful story, and particularly about how you began to realize success was wonderful, but significance was even more wonderful. Please.
Oh, good. Well, I think that, first of all, we have to know who we are as people, know ourselves and what our instincts are, and really what our principles are, right? And because if you're not going to be honest in business, in other words, you can't pretend you're somebody else. Okay. So if you're not comfortable with yourself, then, we have to work, people have to work on that. So my story is like what you said. It was kind of almost on a lark, but I realized pretty clearly when you have to make payroll, even for one person, it's not a lark. Okay. And then the second thing is that I thought that I could hire someone and they would, handle the customers or take the tough questions because customers always want to know who the owner is and whether or not they're going to feel comfortable paying them for services. Now, hospitality and travel are very, very service-oriented businesses. It's all about taking care of people 24/7 around the world. It's all about that. In fact, my first sale was a young couple. We're going to Hawaii. And they said, if anything goes wrong, can we call you? Well, something did go wrong. Their special night when they would do a luau was canceled. And they called me in Fredericksburg, Virginia, where my first office was. And they wanted me to take care of it because they were frightened. They didn't know what. They thought they'd lose their money. Anyway, I learned that I better be there for my customers. And I couldn't just leave it up to somebody else because if I am the owner,
yes,
I have to take, the buck stops here. kind of thing, and you've got to take control. So it's a people business. So it means that it's people as customers. You got to know your customers. You got to have good relationships with your staff, and you got to be willing to do anything for your business. Okay, so that's the beginning of it. But so at that point, I can tell you that it became a mission.
Mhm.
So it became a mission. And then I started to realize what it would take. And I had a very good mentor, in a sense, who was a 76-year-old woman who had found a new mission for herself in life. She had been in the travel industry, for many years. And then as she got older, she didn't want to do the day-to-day work anymore. But she found that one of her missions was to help young people get accredited in travel and by the airlines, by the hoteliers and so forth to do business. So she would stay with us for like 6 months and train me, help the customer. It was quite interesting. And she was so determined, even that's back in 1972. So we had a very determined woman who used to come into the office. She stayed in a motel because she didn't live near my office. And she was from Martinsburg, Virginia. And so she came into my office, and I could see that she was wearing a little gray wig. Sometimes it was slightly, askew, but she was determined, and she made the sale. I had many customers say to me, I made the sale. I bought from her, Gloria, because she really convinced me. Okay. So, so then this shy teacher, who I kind of saw myself as, suddenly became different. So it's mentoring, being around the right people is very, very important. So should I stop there, or do you like me to go on, or just speak freely? Tell me what angle
you can go on, but I want you to stay a little bit for a moment on a mentor. Edie Frazier has a million women mentors, and mentoring isn't inconsequential in our own personal growth. And this woman was a role model for you, who you began to see a little of yourself in, did you not? And you began to absorb her style and the things that worked, and you were sponge-like. And grow.
You have to give good example. You may not know you are, but if by your own behavior and your own principles in life, which go right back to growing up and everything, and then if somewhere along the line, maybe you felt you didn't have the right mentoring, even if it goes back to parents, I think that finding people who will give you some more structure, in your beliefs and let you see what's important. It's just wonderful because it makes you constantly learn. And so the old story about being with people who give you energy, but who really give you a good example, because that's very important. And just in your daily life and as a business owner, you are very much watched by your employees. And, and that's important to show, to behave the way you think is right. And hopefully it rubs off.
If you can't see it, you can't be it. And I often find that the mission and vision and values of an organization don't come alive in the leadership of it. They don't act it, they don't live it, and therefore it doesn't actually mean anything. And so as you developed your purpose there, you began to show them how we do this, not just what we do, and why we do it.
Yeah. So I think that, you can write a lot of procedures books. Now, I do believe in having procedures clearly, concisely done, step by step. Very important, because people need an outline. They need an infrastructure. But there's no better teacher than experience. And we've heard before, but that is true. So a lot of times I've been able to get people to learn very quickly by having clear-cut procedures, but also on-the-job training kind of thing. That's helped a lot. That really helped a lot because, in those early days, I didn't have much money, and I really had to struggle with how much I was going to pay people. So, and of course I was in Fredericksburg, Virginia, which at the time didn't have a big population. so at that time I had to train people. I couldn't hire highly experienced people,
Yeah.
and I couldn't afford them. And so you had to train, you had to take them in and
Yeah.
teach them, but they became very loyal. And that's why I think that you heard Edie say that I still have in my company a lot of people who've been here many, many years.
My hunch, though, is that this was set 1972. I do remember that well. But as the years have gone on, the travel industry has changed. You know, I'm an explorer. My husband and I have been to 37 countries, and I've been to India by myself and China by myself. I mean, we love to travel. But having said that, we often do it on our own. But you have discovered something over the years, I bet, that has expanded the scope of what you offer and brought that caring in different ways, technology wise and otherwise. Can you share a little bit about the growth of Omega Travel into what it's become?
So I think that I've had my eyes opened to what's going on in the economy, what's developing. So in that regard, I wanted to grow. I wanted to stay in business. I started this thing and I didn't want to let go. Okay. So I was determined that I was going to save and I was going to keep it going. Now, that means I was going to keep learning. So whenever an offer was for me to go on a trip or something by a company, an airline, or a tour operator, I always went, but it was hard to leave the office anyway. However, I think that the nature of the travel business does make you want to explore. It's a very, very open, friendly industry. And so in and of itself, it encourages you to want to know more and more. And then people, your customers, ask you all these questions, and they expect you to have been to all these places. And if you haven't, then you have to be really good at, prepping for it and reading all the guides. And so there was a lot of that. So that was instilled in me because I so wanted to go on these journeys with people. So that's one thing. So you have to have, I guess, the old passion for what you're doing. So that's key. And so you don't want to just do something to do it because it might be fun. And that it is very important. But it's the economy, things that were happening in the world that really made me change. Originally, you say, how did I get started? Well, you kind of rely on things your comfort zones. One of mine was schools, like high schools, because I had taught in high school too, and senior class trips. So right around 72, 71, 72, Disney World opened. And then I thought, oh, that's great. Maybe I can put together a little 2-3 nighter to like a little bus tour or flights and I charter. And so I went to these schools in the Fredericksburg area, which is a very small town at that time. And I designed a couple little flyers and gave them an example. And they loved it. And they wanted to go on their take the kids on a senior class trip. And they said, could we fly? And then I found an airline that gave me a lot of good ideas to go out of Richmond, get out, all the kids there by 5 a.m. So that was very good. So that's a lesson. Do what you know if you can, and anything you've done in life, I feel helps you in your business.
Yeah.
But of course, the economy took turns, and then in the late 70s, we went into very high interest rates. And at that time, the industry is being deregulated, which meant that there was more opportunity and less government controls. That then also made the airlines allow travel companies who were doing well, who showed promise, to have computers, their computers in your office. And I had thought, well, I didn't know that was ever going to happen. And I thought I'd be more into touring, conference planning, meetings types of things. But then I switched gears. And I switched gears in that I started to do a lot more business travel because at that time with deregulation and so forth, companies were interested in all the advantages you could offer. And then suddenly I didn't have to call or write tickets anymore. I had okay. And so then that that triggered the government to say, hey, look what's happening. Maybe we can get private industry to see how well they can do in servicing official government travel. So we bid on government travel. We got some nice accounts and won some awards. And, again, we used our internal talent. We'll be good at writing proposals, so everything is starting to be influenced. And then you had a big boom in travel in the 80s, right up until the early 90s. And then we had special PCs, and you could be very creative with PCs when you couldn't with more of the dumb terminals that we call them from the early. So things changed, and the internet came about. So we had to keep changing, and then having prepared for good tracking of customers certainly helped us in 9/11 because we could find people, in all the desperate times. But I just have to say that, no company can just be what they were.
Yeah.
All the good things that they were should stay with them, but you do have to switch gears and modernize. And I think that's been part of what made me successful.
I love listening to you. I have to give a talk coming up in September to 3 different CEO groups. And you tend to get stuck in, this is the way we do it. And they tend to not see what's going on around them. And this is a fast changing time between AI, machine learning, blockchain, the next industrial revolution all around technology. And the elders are resisting, and the youngers can't figure out how to move the elders so that they can begin to build better together for a future that's coming. So it's listening to you is wonderful, and I can't wait to share you because nothing ever is the way it is. And if you can open your mind and see it, next thing you know, you can begin to build the better solutions for it. You couldn't have planned this, did you, in 72 when you were looking out? Did you plan it, or you just lived it?
Oh, no, of course not. But all that I did was, as things were happening and as I saw opportunities, I took them. So, and sometimes if you have a plan, you have to realize that your plan might not be exactly where you need to go. So there could be a detour, like a sign goes up, hey, this is happening. Yeah. And, you better take that detour. Don't be afraid. And I do believe that, opportunities are there every day. But sometimes we just don't see them. So we have to think about what turns us on, what is impressing us. Sometimes we don't know that, or we don't really know what we're feeling or what we're thinking or what we're reacting to because we're so busy, or we just don't open our eyes. So it's not just being busy. It's just like, we get you lost in maybe, some internet thing or some program, but we forget, and business owners can't forget that they need to keep that purpose going, that mission going.
Well, let's talk about that.
I really think so, because we have too many distractions. Yes. And people don't come to offices anymore. Yes. And now they understand that as a desire, but you do lose a certain amount. I think the person loses a certain amount of energy and information by being around. And certainly an owner who's looking for talent or trying to develop people doesn't see them in the office. So sometimes I see myself, because this is a new phenomenon, and I see myself thinking, I really don't know. Now, I have other people, my HR department, my head of operations, they all are working with someone, but we still, you lose a certain magic. So I think individuals today have to understand that in order to progress in an industry that is changing, they have to know what's going on. And it's very hard for us to work to help them to do that.
Yep. It's interesting listening to you because post-pandemic, everything has changed. And people want to know when will we go back. I don't think you can go back. But what's really an opportunity is how do you rethink the way we do things? But to your point, there are things that we learn face to face and in conversations and we hear that are very difficult in a virtual world. You know, it's hard to call up someone and say, let's Zoom. Although there are a couple of people I do. I said, Zoom time. Let's go have a conversation about something that I'm seeing I need your input on. But it's more intentional and tactical and practical than simply casual people. That water cooler had a purpose in it.
It
Yeah.
did. Yeah. And just being visible, let's like today, we're going to get around and have lunch together for the people who are here, but the people who are not here, they're not here. So, so we don't have a chance to, say hi and how they spent what they're going to do on their weekend or something like that.
I know. They're not people.
Well,
They are, but it changes the dynamics. I
it
understand.
becomes harder and harder on the business
Yep.
to be able to reach out to them and to understand. So I think that there's a magic lost.
Mhm. Now, one of the things that you and I were talking about is that as you have grown the business, you have expanded your perspective to make sure you were doing things that were significant for others. And as a woman entrepreneur who is very purposeful, can you talk a little bit about how you go beyond just the profits to the purpose or just the success to the significance? I can say those words, but you are involved in many organizations beyond simply Omega Travel. How does one think about that? And it's both the people that, it's no longer just the shareholders, it's the stakeholders, the employees, the community, your investments outside. Any thoughts you could share that will help others?
Okay, well, there's a lot there that you asked, but I'm trying to boil it down to zero in on really what the deal is. I think what we have to understand is that there's always going to be change. We're not in the business just to be profitable, but if we don't have buy-in, and buy-in leads to purpose.
Yes.
Okay, buy-in leads to communicating.
Yes.
Buy-in leads to getting people to understand the mission and be excited about it. Okay, excited about the people that we're interested in. Put yourself in other people's shoes and
Yeah.
do the right thing, the old golden rule. And that's something I've said forever. And I never knew that I had it in my brain to say that,
Uh-huh.
but I do. So if you want to we all will have to be profitable,
Mm-hmm.
or else we're not going to be able to pay people. We're not going to have a company. There's no business. We're going to turn away customers. We're going to turn away our staff there. Everyone's going to be very unhappy or they'll leave. So there has to be all of that work being done, that camaraderie that's developed over time with people being able to see that they are moving ahead in their jobs, they're learning something, and that they feel that they're making progress. And they're moving up, if you want to call it the ladder or whatever you want to say, but they feel good about themselves. I've learned something today. This is great. I love this customer. I say, get to know your customer. Give them a chance, because people want to be given, that kind of interest. They want you to know that you're interested in them. So don't just be interested in yourself.
Uh-huh.
You got to reach out to other people. And I really do believe all of this. I've learned it sometimes I've learned it the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
And I really can't tell you, specifically all that, but you realize that, yeah, I am going to spend more time with people. Now, I think that the diversity movement that started back in the late 90s, I was asking Edie, I think it was actually late in 97 that I went to the first meeting, one of their first meetings. Anyhow, and learned about WeBank, WBENC, and all that. And some very interesting people, including Edie, of course. I realized, we have to take a little more time. We got to really penetrate, got to talk more about that, because as I say, there was this big boom in the 80s and then 90s, then the early 90s PC. So it became more personalized.
Yes.
so as things become more personalized, they become more personalized. So you better be on that track, right?
Yes.
So that's all, and that leads to what, we talk about, even you folks in anthropology talk about learning about human beings. Um, so that is something that you just have to do. But it's the magic, it's fun in life, if you want to call it fun, but it's also purposeful because you get a lot out of it. You get a lot out of yourself, learning about yourself, and and you make friends, you have close colleagues, people become your friends. And I'm in an industry where there's many links into the chain of a good trip. So we don't own the hotels, we don't run the airlines, we don't, we depend on each other. So we're a very interdependent industry.
Yes.
Everybody, we're all interdependent with each other. So we have to have good relationships. And all this thing about how you grow and how you make people be more purposeful and bring people up and teach them. I mean, every day you're learning something, hopefully, but you're dealing with people. So my industry is very diversified, very interdependent, very global.
Yep.
And even in moments of bad times or times that maybe countries aren't too friendly with our country or vice versa, somehow we still have to get people places.
Yes.
And the travel industry, I don't want to overdo it and sound, oh God, she's saying you're like ambassadors, but we maintain good business relationships with our colleagues and people around the world, because when it all comes down to basics, excuse me, I just lost you, man. But when it all comes down to basics, we kind of all want the same thing, don't we? I
Yeah.
think we want to be happy. We want to have good service. We don't want to have turmoil. So ultimately, we keep in touch, and that makes it very purposeful.
I'm listening to you and smiling because you're sharing a way of getting the folks who work with you and for you and around there to realize that everything is meaningful. What they do for the traveler is extremely important. What you do for the industry is extremely important. Nothing can happen without the whole system caring about each other. So there's a lot of caring, a lot of consideration, a lot of just being very concerned that what I do has a positive. I remember your story about your first couple that didn't have a good luau. That big or little, that's a memorable though, and it has stuck with you for a long time. And I have a hunch that every one of the folks who work for you know that story and a look-alike, and because that's the nature of life. You go and the bags don't come off, or what do I do? I need my travel agent to help me guide, but I need a person, and a travel agent may be the name, but at the end of the day, it's someone who cares about me. It's going to make sure that my journey is great. This has been such a wonderful opportunity to get to know you. I think it's about time, though, that we wrap. One or two things you would like the audience who's watching to know, just to remember, just to leave with as wisdoms that a woman who has had a company of purpose can really share in some fashion.
So one is that if you really want to have a business, then you got to know what it's going to take. Okay. And sometimes it's best to know, maybe have a partner, maybe it isn't. But if you're not triggered by, all the wonderful things you can do in your business, or don't have those instincts, it's not going to work. So you have to keep working at it. Okay. You have to keep seeking opportunities, and whatever it is, if it's going to conferences, meeting the right people, going to learning more about your industry, finding your niche. Not everything and everybody's going to do business travel. Not everybody's going to be good at selling this and that. You want to find what you're really excited about. And in travel, it might be India, or it might be something else, or it might be that you love to do meetings and event planning, who knows? But you've got to find something that you can really hang on to and have the right people. And then it comes with that. It comes with community involvement, showing that you care, finding like people that that can support you in some ways because you're doing a good job. And it's not that they just are going to be asked to do it, but you want to reach out to them because or else you're not going to have buy-in.
Yeah.
And then you want to get your own staff involved. I know that just getting your staff involved with like community involvement has been a really good thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the times we were going out and helping people with the habitat folks who were building little houses, our staff went down, or different events that we do are very important, like with junior achievement. That's a very interesting group, and just the knowledge of what we do in that particular group of junior achievement actually makes our staff proud. Mm-hmm. They're happy to know that. They're happy when we do drives for clothes. And so, and then when I have given them a chance to go to conferences, they enjoy that and they come back with a lot more ideas. So, so it's all about people. It's all about reaching out, and it's all about keeping yourself involved. I think that's it.
I think that's beautiful because it isn't a job. And it's not even a career, it's a life. And it's bigger than just getting a paycheck and taking care of a project or something. This is something that expands. It's who we are. It's who your employees are, right?
Yeah, I think so. And also I do want to mention one other thing. It's not only about entrepreneurism, which is basically what I really like to foster. It's not just about owning a business. What it is about is the entrepreneurial spirit. Mm-hmm. That you put into the creativity, innovation that you put into your work. And big companies need innovators. Yes. And more they try to buy them, which is legendary, right? But they need the entrepreneurial spirit, the people who can say, and they have to open the door to that thinking, right? Yes. We want your ideas. Yeah. We like your ideas. And, what do you think? And do more focus groups or something like that, which brings you a lot of good information. But I think that about fostering that spirit, that thinking within large companies, and boiling it down to projects. The one example that I found so interesting was when NASA started with the Skunk Works. And it was the large airplane, the RJ-17, or was it the big, the big plane that couldn't be detected. It was the fastest plane in the world, and it was they had a group of scientists and go off on their own without they were told they had to get this plane built. I think it was within 18 months, and they built the fastest plane in the world. Yep. Which is still the fastest plane in the world. So it sits in the Air and Space Museum, where I had a function that Edie mentioned for my 50th anniversary. And even with that, I found that space always interested me. So I got involved with some space people and started a company called Space Adventures. But I never really ran it, but I was involved with, being part of it. So I enjoy it, and I just enjoy doing new things. So I also think that you have to leave yourself open. You have to keep feeding yourself new activity. Just if you have a bent for like writing a little book or writing about something fun or producing a play or doing something, I think a business owner or anyone engaged in a very serious business also needs to have a light side. Yes. And find that or do some creative things too, not only focus all the time on business, because business is very tough in a lot of ways. You need to have advisors. Yes. So if you're out there on your own, you got to realize that things can happen that are not too nice. So you have to strengthen yourself with some infrastructure or know who to help you.
Gloria, this has been a wonderful, wonderful time together. Let me thank you. Let me thank my audience. Thanks for joining us on this wonderful journey. It is about entrepreneurship. It's a way of seeing things and making them happen. I often talk as an anthropologist that you have to take your observations and turn them into innovations. And so Gloria Bohan has been with us today to talk about how she's built her company, Omega Travel, but even more, how she's built all the people in it, how she's created a whole travel industry that's innovative and responsive, and it's been great fun. For my viewers, don't forget my books are on Amazon. Women Mean Business is the newest one, but so is Rethink and On the Brink. And I always love your email, so keep sending them along to info@simonassociates.net. And we shall meet again next week to share more women who are really changing businesses, building them, and having purpose and profit. So it's wonderful. Goodbye, Gloria. Thanks again.
Bye. Bye.